All right, good morning. Welcome to our webinar. Thank you for attending this. First and foremost, I'm hoping everyone is healthy and safe and all those things. Okay, so starting off with a couple more housekeeping items. Keep in mind that we do these workshops all the time, and I'll kind of get into that in just a second. For today's webinar, we have an extremely wide variety of attendees. Some of you are longtime clients, some of you have never heard of us before. You're in all different industries, everyone's situations are different. We have just like we have some other people that are even in the marketing industry. Some people are novices, some people are experts. So I guess in advance, forgive me if I start working on topics or covering things that you've already heard me say before, but it's going to be important to sort of lay some of the foundational things about Google and Facebook in order to understand why the changes, these rapid things that are happening right now, are important. So we'll be covering a lot of that territory. Keep in mind that there's absolutely not a one-size-fits-all situation here. Everybody's been impacted differently by this. Some businesses are absolutely just shut down temporarily. Some are challenged with a huge increase in demand because depending on the service they're in, and some really haven't been impacted in any major way. So, again, when I'm rolling off these tactics and talking about the things that are going on, some of them really will apply to every single business. Others, it might vary depending on your specific situation. When we're done with this webinar, we are going to have time for Q&A. I'm going to be adding Kyle, who is one of the partners here and is our senior account manager. He has a wealth of information and he's on the front lines dealing with all the technical things that come up, and we're going to be adding him in to answer some of your questions as well. Okay, so to get started, just a little bit of background about WebMO. We're a digital marketing agency and Google partner. A Google partner basically means that Google is, sort of watching what we do and telling the rest of the world that we're doing things in a way that is, conforming or within their best practices. Our backgrounds are a bit different than others in our industry, and it's kind of important to understand that because some of the things that we talk about might vary slightly from other things that you've heard. It doesn't necessarily mean that we are right and they are wrong. It's just that our methodology and our approach to all things digital is just sometimes a little bit different, as I mentioned, because of our backgrounds. The founders come from the worlds of engineering and IT and software development, so we tend generally to be a little more driven by data. And usually, again, I'm not saying anyone else is doing this incorrectly, we normally find that we have a little more deeper understanding of some of the more technical elements of digital marketing, Google Analytics, some of the things that are sort of going on behind the scenes. So we are basically a company that's designed for helping businesses through these types of situations. As a Google partner, we obviously are also very committed to this idea of education. We've sort of hopped on to this idea that an informed consumer, businesses that understand this stuff, are going to have a better chance of making the right decisions in terms of what tactics they use and so forth. As part of that, we've been very involved in Google's Grow with Google program. We actually became one of the very few companies that was recognized as one of their 2019 Grow with Google high impact partners. That's specifically because of the sheer number of people like yourselves that have come through our workshops. We really have committed to this idea. So we do quite a bit of these educational sort of formats. This one's obviously a bit different than some of the ones we present. So a quick preview of what we're gonna be talking about today. Number one, we're gonna just dive into this idea of adapting. Clearly, we're all in an uncharted territory here. Every business, like I said before, is gonna be affected in some way, shape, or form. So it's kind of important to just kind of get your head around what you should do or what you shouldn't do and sort of see, kind of navigate the very treacherous waters that we all find ourselves in. That first section, I'm also going to be talking a little bit about some of the industry news. Now, as we're rolling through the workshop, the second part is going to be about the digital marketing tactics that are generally being used by most businesses. Either you've used them or you've thought about using them. I clearly can't cover every single digital marketing strategy that's out there, but all of the major ones, I'm going to be giving you just a fundamental understanding of what normally is happening. Like we'll talk about Google, we'll talk about Facebook, and then at the end of each one of those sections, I'll update you on the current changes and some of the things that are available for small businesses during this time. And then lastly, we're going to just do a quick preview of the upcoming workshops that we have going on. You probably noticed when we sent our invitation, or if you went to our sign-up page, that we have a whole series of these things coming your way. We decided to do them at this time every Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Now, the schedule we have listed there is absolutely subject to change as events unfold. Right now, we'll talk about those at the end, but we have a very large variety. These next ones, the next 4, are going to be either hosted by myself or Kyle, who I mentioned earlier. They're only going to be 30 minutes long, but they're going to dive very specifically into the topics that I'm going to be able to just loosely cover today. So if you find yourself saying, whoa, I wish they would talk more about that, there's a pretty good chance that that's exactly what will happen. But again, we're going to allow some flexibility and be able to adapt or sort of add things on there as news comes out. In fact, at the beginning of each one of those 30-minute little mini webinars, we're going to give you updates on like, hey, here's the latest stuff, so forth and so on. If you've registered for this event and we have your email, there's no reason to have to register for the next one. We're going to send you a link already that's going to allow you to log into that. So if you forget to register, you're still welcome to register. But if you don't register, don't worry. We're going to give you the information so that you can allocate the time and get in front of the computer and kind of keep up to date on the latest stuff. I know there's a lot of news and a lot of things, a lot of people talking about all the different elements. They're talking about flattening curves and infection rates and the economy, and there's a million other things coming at you. But at least for this very small sliver of time, we're going to stay very focused on the element of digital marketing, because as small business owners and marketing decision makers, it's critical. I mean, it's as important, if not in some cases more important, than some of the other issues that people are talking about. Okay, let's talk about some of the big events that are going on real quick. All of the social media platforms have been introducing adaptations and changes and things as part of this overall event. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of them have done something. There's some things like Twitter I'm not going to probably have a chance to get into today, but most of the major ones we're going to be able to talk about a little. Google My Business in particular has made a lot of changes in the way your business even shows up when people are doing searches online. Some general data. Obviously, the internet usage has gone up dramatically. There's been a huge surge of just the use of the technology, clearly. I mean, people doing webinars is one example, working from home, but it's not just that. It's also people jumping on and just being information seekers, like what is going on, all the search terms. There are huge amounts of increases on all kinds of search topics. The Reddit is a platform that kind of compiles news articles throughout the internet. We're not going to talk about that too much today, but it's a pretty good way to spot trends, which kind of things are really trending and what articles and what kind of things people are most interested in. During this time, obviously, finance, sports, education, in addition to all the health-related topics, those searches have kind of gone up quite a bit. We have basically been tracking, obviously, a huge increase in e-commerce. That pretty much stands to reason. A lot of people obviously shifting their buying online, and that's resulted in a huge increase in advertising for online stuff. A big increase in the amount of dollars they're spending, and not just on digital, but on traditional advertising and everything else. The general thought is that may slow down a little bit if we can't keep up with the demand. So if you have an e-commerce situation as part of your business, right now you may or may not, depending on your product, of course, like I said, there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. You may have seen a spike, but if shipping and infrastructure and supply chains or whatever can't keep up, that may sort of start to level off. How it impacts your business could be, and there's a couple different possible scenarios. It could be that while these people are shifting their money over to digital ads, in some cases that could create pretty much like a lack of inventory, if you want to put it that way. A lot of the advertising on Facebook and some of the websites that you see ads on, there's only so much screen space, and if it's being overwhelmed by e-commerce ads, it's possible that your ad might have a little more time, a little more struggle getting through if you're still running ads. But we're going to talk more about that in just a minute. The other thing that's happening is that they've all sort of come together and released some joint statements about how they're trying to respond to this situation. Basically doing things to make sure that the level of misinformation is kept to an absolute minimum, and doing a little bit more to validate authority in terms of people that are putting information out there. That's not something that will necessarily affect most businesses. If you have a really active social media campaign, you already you're probably not, and I don't know, I didn't see the entire attendee list, but unless you're in this industry where you're talking about health-related issues, you probably won't see too much happening because of that. What we are seeing is obviously dramatic shifts in the kinds of things people are looking for, and they're going both directions. The social distancing thing has created some interesting search terms and upticks in certain areas for sure. There's huge trends going in things like groceries and Costco and Zoom, even the platform we're using right now. I'm sure there was a huge spike in search terms like toilet paper near me. That obviously was a huge thing for a while. They're basically, we're also seeing, for that sort of ramp up, we're obviously seeing a downtrend in, travel and leisure related things. The main point though, and again, we're going to be spending an entire workshop on this very thing, and I'm going to circle back to this a couple of times, is for you, for your business, to have a real firm understanding as best as you can on what is happening specifically in your area. The reason you want to do that is you don't want to make a rash decision. You don't want to make an assumption that, oh, no one's going to be searching for what I'm doing anymore. You don't know. The data will tell you though. You can make all your guesses and you can read the tea leaves and you can pay attention to the news and all that's great. But ultimately, you can trust the data to see what is actually happening in your world. For example, like if you're selling cleaning products, offering cleaning services, the Google Trends are showing that that's sort of on the uptick. If you're in the refinancing business, mortgages, whatever, that's on the uptick. Clearly, other categories are going to see the other direction. So again, we're going to be covering this in a workshop, but I can give you some basic information on how to find this out right now. There's a easy to use tool, it's free. If you Google the words Google Trends, just Google the phrase Google Trends, you're going to get this very simple to use little screen here that's going to allow you to put a search term in and really set a lot of other areas in terms of the geography, the time range, and all these other things to see what's happening with your specific industry. You may see that things are going up, you may see that things are going down, or you may see that things are unaffected. That's kind of the foundational bit of data that you need to kind of look at before you start shifting direction or stopping or starting or doing any major adjustments to your current digital marketing strategy.